So today's broadcast is sponsored once again by Mechi Wurzburger, the Ilu Nishmas' mother, whose Yortzeit was Erev Shabbos, Belima Bas Reb Chaim, and in honor of the Chasna that indeed was the Itay Uzmanai Uvim Kaima yesterday. It was a beautiful, beautiful Chasna. Today is also a big Yortzeit. Today is the Yortzeit of the Arach. Well, if we start from more recently, we have Motta Weinberg from Montreal, Yeshiva Montreal. It's his Yortzeit. And it's also the Yortzeit of the Shagas Aryeh, who is famous for bringing many Bar Mitzvah Pshatlach to fruition. And it's also the Yortzeit of the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh was legendary in his Kedusha. But what I just learned this morning is that the Orach Chaim HaKadosh died when he was only 47 years old. And he had no children, which I didn't know either. So if anyone tells you, you could laugh, because he didn't have any children. Now, what's interesting is the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, when he got married, he married very wealthy. And he was a very wealthy guy, and his share held him out, he should learn. And eventually, after his father-in-law died, there was a lot of people who were jealous of him, and he was falsely reported to the king. He ended up losing his money, and he was a silversmith at the end. That's how he supported himself. And the story goes that the Orach Chaim once mistakenly caused some type of insult to the king of Morocco, who threw him into a pit of lions. And in the pit of lions, I guess Orach Chaim brought his talis and tefillin along. He put him on, and the lions gathered around him respectfully. And when the king saw that nace, he said, now I know that the Rebbeinu Shloim of Klal Yisrael is the real Rebbeinu Shloim. So he ended up in Italy, where he wrote his Sefer, and then he moved to Eretz Yisrael in 1742. He spent Yom Kippur in the cave of Eliyahu Novi in Har Carmel. I don't even know where that is. He spent Purim in Tzfas, and he studied Zohar there. And the interesting thing is this: the Baal Shem Tov tried to go many times to Eretz Yisrael, and he never made it. But his brother-in-law, Reb Gershon Kitiver, went, and he sent Reb Gershon Kitiver with a letter to the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. And when Reb Gershon Kitiver brought regards, he says, I'm here from my brother-in-law, the Baal Shem. The Reb Chaim said, I don't know who you're talking about. The Baal Shem, I don't know who you're talking about. Finally, he said, the Baal Shem Tov. Oh, the Baal Shem Tov, him I know who he is. And the Baal Shem believed, and it's apparent from the letters, I guess that they know what the letter said, that he believed that if he would come to Eretz Yisrael and get together with the Orach Chaim, they would for sure be able to bring Mashiach. But he was never able to make it. The Rebbe Shem held him back. And the other interesting story is, as the legend goes, is that the Baal Shem died on Tesvav Tammuz, and that Shabbos by Shalosh Shudas, the legend has it, is the Baal Shem Tov said that the Ner Maravi went out, was extinguished, because he felt already that the Orach Chaim was nifter on Shabbos. He just brings up the problem is with that is that Tesvav Tammuz never falls out on Shabbos. So that year it was Yudal Tammuz. So there's a shayla if the Yortzeit of the Orach Chaim HaKadosh is Yudal Tammuz or if it's Tesvav Tammuz. But it's accepted that it's Tesvav Tammuz, which is today. So Shchusei Yogain Aleinu.
Amen. You know, Yossi Zalman, that I saw together with Avrami Kletsky and Moshe Joseph and possibly half the Mesivta, that on the day that Reb Moshe Goldberg died, the light above his seat went out.
In the Mesivta?
Yep.
You mean like the light bulb?
Yeah, the one right above his head.
Wow.
It was like a wall sconce, like a wall light. And that light went out the day he died. He wasn't in shul, but on the day he died, it stayed like that for about a whole week. I went to check, and they wouldn't change it.
And after a week, it came back on, or after a week, they changed it?
I don't know. You got to find out. I'm only telling you what I saw. And it wasn't that it went out completely. It just like, like the filament got ruined in such a way that it went from, let's say, I don't know, let's talk the old language, 100 watts to like 10 watts. So it burnt like
which is very unusual. You never see a bulb's either on or off. You never see it just dim.
Right. But that's how I was able to see that it was like that. And people pointed to it. Because otherwise,
I see who you're talking about.
Reb Moshe Goldberg from the Masifta. His light went out. They said the same thing about Reb Moshe Feinstein. But, that I just read in the book. But physically, we were all able to see about Reb Moshe Goldberg. What's his name? Yossi Zalman just mentioned that the Ner Maravi went out when the Orach passed away.
Yeah.
Wow.
Incidentally, the Arizal also died at 38. The Ramchal died at 42. The Shach also died in his 40s. I think even the Taz died very young. It wasn't so uncommon for these tzaddikim.
But Moshe Rabbeinu died at 120.
At 120. Well, he only started his career at 80 years old. You know what? My one last comment. I'll just get it out of my tummy. Do you know what the Abarbanel said when he got thrown out of Spain and he started his commentary? Not the Abarbanel got thrown out of Spain in 1492. What he said, and he started his commentary to Barbanel right in the beginning. He said, "Chisure mechsero v'hochiktoni." I lost all my money because he was financier to the king and he had all kinds of money. Chisure mechsero v'hochiktoni. Now I'm going to start studying.
Wow, that's how sharp line.
That's how he starts off his sefer.
Wow, unbelievable. Okay,
and that was at 70 years old. So we still have we still can accomplish something.
He still had his mojo. Okay, so we actually finished yesterday the Talmud Oven, but we really should just quickly review the last couple of lines at the bottom of Amud Beis. So let's just quickly look over here. Zok the Gemara was discussing this cornice that the Mishnah said you're allowed to use to break open the shells of nuts. What type of hammer are we talking about? Rabbi Yehuda said it was a hammer that was designated for nuts, which means it was a klishul malachta laheter that you were allowed to use. But if it was a hammer that was designated to be used for more industrial purposes, like a nail hammer, like a claw hammer or a sledgehammer, that you wouldn't be able to use for opening up nuts, which means a klishul malachta le'iser you wouldn't be able to use l'tzorech gufay. Rabbi argued, because he said from the end of our Mishnah, it's pretty clear that those kalim that the Mishnah specifically does allow are kalim shemalachtim le'iser, shemalachtom le'iser, and therefore Rabbi holds that a kli shemalachtim le'iser, such as a hammer that's used by a blacksmith, you're allowed to use on Shabbos for a mutter purpose, such as breaking open the shells of nuts. And that's going to be the subject of our Gemara today, different types of muksas, beginning with the kli shemalachta le'iser. So Rabbi said, Dover shemalachta le'iser, l'tzorech gufay mutter, and we saw Rashi yesterday, it's a mutter for the purposes of doing something mutter. Abaye l'Rava. So Abaye waded into this dispute, and he said as follows. It says in the Brisa, meducha. Meducha is a keli that you crush things in. Im yesh boshum, if there's some piece of garlic in it, so I guess you didn't wash it out, and there's still some garlic, you must have crushed garlic in it, then metal telenoisa, then you're allowed to use it on Shabbos. Now you're not allowed to grind, but Rashi says you can use it to for some other purpose, such as going leishev aleh, to sit there, to sit on it. So meduchim yesh b'shum metal telenoisa, v'im lav ein metal telenoisa. So clearly, meducha is a kli shemalachta le'iser, and you cannot use it l'tzorech gufay or mekoymai. You could only use it if there's some shum left inside it, and therefore you can carry it agav the shum. So that's shvei on Rabba, who holds that a kli shemalachta le'iser you are allowed to use for mutter purposes. Amar lei, Rabbi answered back, Hamani Rab Nechemihi. This Bryce is going according to Rab Nechemiah, who has a very chumra de kashita in Hilchas Muksa. The Amar ein kli nitel ela l'tzarech tashmishay. Any keli, even a keli shemalach laheter, you're only allowed to use it and move it for the purposes of what it's designated to be used for. Meaning, if you have a knife and you want to use it to scrape something off, like if you have like a steak knife that you may eat steak with, and you want to use it to scrape something off somewhere on Shabbos, even though that's something that's mutter, you would not be allowed to use it. A steak knife would only be able to be used to cut meat with, to cut food with. So therefore, only Agav the Shum was a mutter. So the shaila that the Rishonim bring up over here is, we learned by a mace, which is also muksa, that you could carry it agav a kikar, but only because of cover abrius. Since there's a problem of abandoning a mace, as cover abrius, we allow you to put a kikar on. The meducha seems to be mutter to be carried agav the shum, even though there's no cover abrius involved. So the question is why? So there's different answers in the Rishonim. One of the answers that the Rishonim say is that this case here, this shum, was in the meducha from before Shabbos. It was already there before Shabbos. Since it's already there before Shabbos, yes, you're allowed to carry it. By the mace, the kikar was not on the mace before Shabbos. The mace died on Shabbos, and now it's going to be want to move it, so you could put a kikar on it. But avada, if the kikar was already on it before Shabbos, there you don't need the heter of kavod abrius. The Ritva says it makes a difference if something is on it or in it. The shum is in the meducha. That's a much more powerful heter. You'd be able to carry muksa agav something that's in it. But merely because a kikar is on the mace, that alone wouldn't be a reason to be able to carry the mace. You need to add to it the reason of kavod abrius. Dr. Hille Gemara weiter. Eisvei. Beishamei Oimrim ein noitun as a Eli lakatziv olav basar. Eli was a keli that was used to chop with. And it was used to chop iser. It was a kli shemalach to iser. But you were allowed to, and Beishamei holds you're not allowed to use it even for a heter, such as cutting meat, which you need to use. Basil Matirin, Basil does allow you to use it. But for Shovin, both Beishamai and the Hill and Basil agree, Shem Kotzav olav basar, if you already used it for meat, meaning you don't need it anymore, then also lefalklei. So basically, Basil and Beishamai are both moide that a kli shemalachta iser, you're not allowed to be metaltal. Basil had a separate heter, Rashi tells us, because of Simchas Yom Tov, if you needed it to cut meat, so they waived the prohibition of muksa for your Simchas. For your Simchas Yom Tov, you should be able to cut meat on it. But normally, a kli shemalach l'isher would be usher to be metaltal l'tzorech kufoy. So that's again Shver and Rabba who holds you're allowed to use a kli shemalach l'isher for a mutter purpose. So Zok Gemara sover l'shnui like Rab Nechemiah. They wanted to right away use Rab Nechemiah. It's a great way to answer things. Rab Nechemiah holds anything you're only allowed to use for its specified purpose, and therefore clearly this Eli would be usher to use on Shabbos. But given the Shama, l'halder Rab Chinina bar Shlamia, Mishmei de Rav, once they heard the Chiddush that we're about to quote from Rab Chinina in the name of Rav, we had a better teretz. And what did he say? Hakoil moedin besivi zairi umazuri. It's a shaila what these tools are. They're either weaving tools. Rashi has one shot that they're weaving tools. Rashi has another shot that they're dyeing tools. But whatever there is, they're kelim shemalachton leiser. But they have another factor involved with them to keep in the kapar alayu. People are very makbid on these kelim that they shouldn't get ruined. So therefore, miyachid lumakim, a special place is specified for them so that they shouldn't get damaged. Hachaname, so too, we could say in this case of the Eli that miyachid lahumakim, it's a specialized type of keli that they're miyachid makim for, and therefore even Rabbi would be moida that this kli shemalach l'isser is different. It's going to be usher even l'tzarech chufay of a kaimah. I just want to see how the art scroll pronounces the word. Is it Eli or is it Ali? The Ayin Lamed Yud word. Just want to see what he says. I hate
Eli.
pronouncing things wrong.
With a segol, Eli.
Eli, okay.
Also, can I ask you to clarify? Is there a difference whether or not the use that you're using this keli shemalachta le'isr, such as the hammer, such as this Eli, that you're using it in the same manner just for something that might be mutter? And this thing with the shum really threw me. You're not allowed to squeeze. It's a garlic press. Like Rashi says that it's used b'dafka for shum. You're not allowed to press garlic on Shabbos.
That's right. You're not allowed.
Right? So you're not allowed to press anything really on Shabbos. I can't think of it.
It's a klisha malach le'isr.
So Rashi has to go out and say that you're using it to sit on it. That might be the use for it.
What other purpose could you use it for on Shabbos? So you're actually suggesting you want that to sit on.
So is there any svara to say that if I'm using it for something, I'm allowed to cut a piece of meat on Shabbos? I'm sitting around the table. I have lots of guests. They used up all my cutlery. All I have left is a hatchet, and I want to slice my Shabbos meat. Is that a different in halacha?
No, but it's interesting. No, Rashi doesn't say you're cutting your meat on Shabbos. Rashi says Yom Tov, because this meat is probably raw meat that you're chopping. We're probably referring to raw meat, but it doesn't really matter. If it was on Shabbos, you would use it for cooked meat, but it's a heterodictive function. The whole point is these examples of uses on either Shabbos or Yom Tov are all heterodictive function. You're using a keli that's normally used for a userdictive function. You're adapting it and you're using it for a heterodictive function.
But it's irrelevant that the use is the same exact use. Instead of hitting a nail, you're hitting a nut.
Correct.
So
but you normally don't hit nuts with a claw hammer. You will normally use a nutcracker. But so the chiddush of klisha malach le'isr is, according to Rabbi, is that even though it's a klisha malach le'isr, it's not designed for the purposes that you're using it for. Since you are using it for a mutter purpose and it works, he holds that there's no isur muksa there.
And Reb Nechemiah's zushtel to this?
Reb Nechemiah is very machmer. He holds even kelim shemalachtim laheter. You're not allowed to move any keli only for the specific purpose that it was designed for.
Okay.
So even a klisha malach le'isr, you have no way of using it at all.
Right.
But a klisha malach leheter, even then, you could only use it for things that it's designed for. And this would say that like a fork or a knife, which we'll discuss soon, whether that's classified as a kli shemalach le'isr. But if it is shumlach leheter, if it is classified as a shumlach leheter, Reb Nechemiah holds you wouldn't be able to use it only for its express purpose, which is to cut your food. You wouldn't be allowed to move cutlery for any other reason. And that's going to become very relevant because even if you hold it's mutal shachkufa el mekaymai, we're going to soon see that the kli shumlach leheter also has restrictions even nowadays. And that's something that we have to make note of. So the first thing I want to discuss is the subject matter at hand. And that is, there's a svara of kivin the kapar alayu miyached lehumakim. So we know there's something called muksa machmas chasar and kiss. And here, since there's a muksa machmas chasar and kiss, because people are concerned about it, even designate a special place for it, that will be usher. So that's a new idea of muksa machmas. Now, it's not really clear from this Gemara if that's intertwined with kli shemalach le'isr, or if the problem of muksa machmas chasar and kiss applies even on something that's not a kli shemalach le'isr. Here, the Mishnah is adding it on to a kli shemalach le'isr, but we don't know if it would stand as an isr on its own. So that's going to be the halacha l'maisa. I just want to get to the two dots, and then I want to review some halacha l'maisa things. Itmar, Reb Chia bar Abba Amar B'Yochanan, Kornei Shol Zahavim, some type of hammer that they used, that goldsmiths used. Kornei Shol Zahavim Shnidu. What type of hammer are we discussing in our Mishnah that says you're allowed to use it for nuts. It's the hammer that a goldsmith uses. Rab Shaman bar Abba Omar, Kornish shel B'samim. So now we have three versions: Kornish shel Apachim, Kornish shel Zahavim, and Kornish shel B'samim. Man Amr de B'samim. The Man Amr holds that you're even allowed to use a Kornish shel B'samim on nuts, which there's good reason to believe that it's going to mess up. It's going to mess it up. B'samim is something that's delicate, and you don't want to use that hammer for anything else because it's going to make the B'samim that you're going to use this keli for primarily smelly, because it's going to be contaminated with other things. So mandamar de b'samim, if you hold that even a kornish shel b'samim, which you don't really want to use for anything else, but on Shabbos you're allowed to use it for a tzorech heter, kolshkin dizhavim, surely the hammer of a goldsmith, which is not such a big deal, it won't get messed up if you use it for nuts. For sure, that would be mutter to be used. But mandamar shel zahavim, the mandamar holds that our Mishnah is speaking about a hammer that a goldsmith uses. He would disagree, and he would hold, he would hold that the hammer used to crush spices would also fall under the category of muksa machmas chasar and kiss, because he wouldn't want it used for any other purpose. It might get ruined, and therefore it would not. The halach of our Mishnah that allows you to use it to break nuts open would not apply to a hammer of a sum. So when it comes to the question of muksa machmas chasar and kiss, the first question we have to understand is, does it only apply to kalim? Because there are certain things that were never in the category of muksa at all. Kalim, you have to assess, is it a malach l'isser, is it a malach l'heter? But what about food products? Was there ever a isser muksa put on the food products? So most shittas hold, of course, there is no isser whatsoever. There's no isser muksa at all on food products. So what would be the halacha, for instance, if you have something that you're makbid on, there's chasar and kiss involved, but you're not miyachad l'mokum. For instance, your wallet. Your wallet has money, your credit cards, there's for sure a concept of chasar and kiss about it. But do you put your wallet in a very specific case? No. You're not miyachad your place for your wallet. So is it considered muktzah machmas chasar and kiss if you have an item that you're not miyachad l'mokum? My leichters are miyachad l'mokum. I put them usually in the break front when they're not being used, when they're being used on the table. That might be muktzah machmas, I don't know. But if you have an expensive instrument, if you have your computer, you probably put it in its case. You don't just leave it lying around. But a wallet, you're not miyachad l'mokum. Is that considered muktzah machmas chasar and kiss? So there's actually a shaila about that. I'm trying to see if I could remember who the shittas are. I think I've written down. I think Reb Moshe. I think that 1 second. I think the Sharatzin says that if you're not miyachad l'mokum, it wouldn't be a problem. It wouldn't be a problem. I'm sorry, not the Sharatzin. The Beis Meir. The Beis Meir holds if you're not miyachad l'mokum like your wallet, there wouldn't be a problem of muktzah machmas chasar and kiss on your wallet. Although Reb Moshe paskins that the concept of miyachad l'mokum that our Gemara uses is just a dogma. It's just describing one of the characteristics that you could find by something that's chasar and kiss. But that's not ma'akev. Anything that you're makbid on would also have a isser of muktzah machmas chasar and kiss. Now, what about food products that would be machmas chasar and kiss? For instance, you're a food vendor. You own a grocery store. The food in your grocery store, you're makbid on because it's your inventory. Inventory normally falls under the category of muktzah machmas chasar and kiss. So you have inventory in your store, and you need a bottle of milk. Are you allowed to go into your store and take a bottle of milk, or do we say that's a muktzah machmas chasar and kiss? So the Satmar Rebbe in DYLive holds that the whole isser of muktzah machmas chasar and kiss only applies to a klisha malachti. Isser. But food products, it doesn't apply to at all. So the Satmar Rebbe holds if you have a grocery, and you just rangehen in the grocery, roobst zu nehmen a bottle milch, weil du darfst um a kaff in der Früh, in der Milch geworden sauer, brauchst a neue frische bottle milch, makes the rangehen in Geschäft, rausnehmen a bottle milch. That's what the DYLive holds. But Rabbi Akiva Eger seems to say not like that. And the Tehillah David says, even though maybe it wouldn't be considered Muksa Machsarkis, but it depends on your level of Akpada. And I'm not sure exactly how that plays out, Halacha L'maisa. But for sure, according to the Satmar Rebbe, you're allowed to, if you're a food vendor, and we're not talking about a keli, you'd be allowed to use it on Shabbos because the concept of Muksa Machsarkis would not apply to food products.
I'll tell you, Allah Lamaisa, our Rav, we have once a Kiddush list, similar to your story with Danny Kahan with the oven. I don't remember who the Baal Simcha was, but it was a Baal Simcha that the Rav, it was touch and go, and the herring was left outside overnight. And we got in the morning, the herring was sitting on the floor, and the Rav allowed Moshe Zombek to go into a store through the back and bring us more herring.
Wow.
There's a same exact story, right?
It's
It's
the Rav who saved Shabbos.
Huh?
The Rav who saved Shabbos.
The Rav who saved Shabbos. And that's even a bigger chiddush than what you're saying, is because I don't know if Moshe charged us double for that Shabbos. I don't remember. But he was still using it as inventory, right? He wasn't just stop using it as food.
Well, yeah, it's that case. The question is, was the Rav using the heter of Pekuach Nefesh, or were you using?
Shabbos.
Okay, beautiful story. Right, so that Mamish illustrates exactly this point.
Yeah, but the Rav's heter of Pikuach Nefesh wasn't for the oilam. The Rav's heter of Pikuach Nefesh was when they knew that they were going to ask his shaila, it was for himself.
I hear.
And the Rav's a little bit of a Satmar Chassid, isn't he?
That's right. We all have a little bit of Satmar in us. Okay. Speaking of Satmar, we had some Satmar Chassidim in Toronto this week. I shouldn't say Satmar Chassidim, that's much. We had some Nutrei Karta people here because this week was the day of rage downtown. It was the Palestinians and the anti-Semites all gathered together downtown this weekend to protest against Israel and against the Jews. So there's always 3 Platschige Biba Hitlach there. And this year they can't come snoring in the Agudah because no one can come in. Okay. So these are some type of pegs that you use like as a toothpick. So the Mishnah says you're allowed to use those on Shabbos. Again, that's Klisha Malach Iser Mutal Shachkuf Ebekoymai. Toner Rabban Paga Shenitma Beteven. You had some figs that weren't fully ripened, and they would bury them in straw. Now, straw normally is not made for ripening. They're normally used. She says, Teven muksa hava latit. Teven is also a shtickle muksa machas chasar kiss because you're going to be using it to make cement out of, but you were temporarily putting a fig into it to help it ripen. And the Rishonim tells us that this means you had a charora that was in gecholim before Shabbos when those gecholim are hot, but now, of course, those gecholim are no longer hot because you couldn't move it at all then, because then you would be stoking the flame. So now, whenever you want to take this charora out of its being somewhat buried in gecholim, there's no flame, there's no fire left at all. So imagula mikzaso, if they're somewhat uncovered, so you can access them to grab them without moving away any teven or moving away any gecholim, mutlatatla, you're allowed to take it. Vimlav also latatla, but if not, it would be usher to take those out of where they are covered with. Rabbi Elizabeth Tadai Omer, toichvin b'kush or b'karkar. You don't have to actually touch it. You could take a stick like a toothpick and puncture through the ash, or through the teven, into the food product that you want, the fig or the kikar, and then as you lift it up, any ash that's on it or any straw that's on it will fall off on their own. The hein menaris me'alein, which opens up a new sugya of tiltul minatzad. So we'll get into the details momentarily. Amar Rab Nachman halacha Rabbi Elazar ben Tadoi. The halacha of Rabbi Elazar ben Tadoi that this tiltul minatzad is not a problem. So tomorrow, remember the Sover Rab Nachman, Tiltel Menatzad Loishme Tiltel, from the fact that Rab Nachman Paschals like Rabbi Elazar ben Tadoi seems to indicate that he holds Tiltel Menatzad is not a problem. I, the Omer Rab Nachman, Hai Pugla, Milamayla Lamata Shari, Mimata Lamayla Osfer. If you have radishes that have already been harvested, they're not Mechuber Lakarka anymore, but when you pull them out, there's a radish at the bottom, and then the leaves spread out. So if you look at a radish plant when it's pulled out of the ground, it would be in a V formation. The bottom comes to a point at the bottom of the radish, but as you move your way up, the plant takes up more and more space because the leaves spread out. So it's a big V or cone type of formation. So the halacha is, if you put them back into the ground just to keep them cool, but right side up, so when you pull the leaves out, you're not moving anything because as you pull the leaf up, the whole and the radish moves up. The radish, which is small, is moving into a bigger hole because the hole opens up bigger because it was housing the leaves of the plant. That would be mutter. But if you put the plant in upside down, which means the leaves are covered with earth, so when you yank the radish out, those leaves are going to have to expand the hole on their way up, push the earth out of the way. That would be osir. So don't you see that Rab Nachman holds Tiltel Menatzad is osir? So tomorrow, how did Rab Nachman mehi? Rab Nachman was chozer from his chumrah that he said if the radish was upside down, you couldn't pull it out. In fact, he holds you could pull it out because it's only Tiltel Menatzad because you're not moving the earth directly. So the way I touched this Tiltel Menatzad was, are you directly touching the earth or are you not directly touching the earth? But that might not be the definition of Tiltel Menatzad. Tiltel Menatzad, according to certain shittas, is that it's kalach yad. You're not moving earth in the normal way that you normally move earth, and that's where the heter is. And this is nagei halacha l'maisa, because most poskim hold that if you, like, such as the Mishnah Berurah, that if I move a davar muksa using something else, that's called tiltel menatzad, and that would be mutter. So if I have pistachio shells on my table, they're muksa. But if I take a knife and I clear them with a knife, that would be called tiltel menatzad, that would be mutter. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Shulchan Aruch Harav, holds no. When you use a knife to move shells, that's called your yada arichta, and that would be osher. And he holds it's only mutter to move muksa if the tiltel menatzad means it's not the right derech, it's not the normal way of doing it, and therefore he's machmer to say that you're only allowed to move muksa around if it's not the right derech. Just touching it through another keli would not qualify as tiltel menatzad. Zok the Gemara weiter. Machat shal yad lito ba is a coach. You're allowed to use a needle, which is normally a klisha malach iser, because it's made to sew with. You're allowed to use it to take out a splinter. Zok the Gemara. Sholach le Rabbi the Rabbi Rabbi Yosef. Yilamdeni Rabbeinu. Rabbi, please teach us. Machat shanitel charara. What if you have a needle? Its end broke off. The end with the eye broke off, or its point broke off. Ma'u, what halacha does that make this keli muksa because it's no longer a keli? We actually have a brayso that discusses this. Machat shal yad litel ba is a koitz. Our Mishnah says that you're allowed to use a needle to take out a splinter. Do you think the thorn in your finger cares, or you care to use a needle, whether it has a hole or not? It's irrelevant. So it must be that it would be mutter to carry around such a needle, even though it's broken, because it still has a purpose. You can use it to remove a splinter. Once the machat loses its point or its okutz, it's tar. Now, if it's tar, you see, it loses its shem keli. So why isn't it muksa on Shabbos? Amar Abaye, Frank Abaye, Tuma a Shabbos karamis. You're trying to bring me a raya from Tuma till Shabbos? No connection. Tuma kli ma'isa be'inan. In order to be makabel Tuma, it has to be a kli ma'isa, meaning Rasha ma'isa shaloi kayim. Its original purpose has to still be valid. Taking out a thorn is not the original purpose of a needle. So that's why the Brisa says that it's Torah. But in Shabbos, it has nothing to do with its original purpose. It's immediately chazibin. Anything that has some purpose won't be muksa on Shabbos. And this needle, you could take out a splinter with it. So therefore, a needle that's broken might not be muksa on Shabbos, even though it loses its status of a keli, l'inyan tum of a tire. Omar Rava. Rava said, I disagree with you, Abaye. Man de kamoisiv, shaper kamoisiv. Whoever asked the kasha from Tumah on Shabbos asked a good kasha, because I hold they are the same. L'inyan Tumah, lav monahu, if it's not considered a keli, l'inyan Tumah, l'inyan Shabbos nami lav monahu, it would lose its status of a keli, and it would be usher to be moved on Shabbos. Tosfos clarifies a little bit what that relationship would be. It's not a direct relationship, but there's still a relationship. Meisvei, frek the Gemara kasha, machat, bein nukuva, bein she'ein nukuva, muter lataltla b'Shabbos. V'lo amru nukuva elin tum b'lvad. So you see clearly here that there is a difference between Tumah and Shabbos. So you, Rava, how could you suggest that you could bring a rye from Tumah to Shabbos? The Brisa is black and white that L'gabe Shabbos, it doesn't matter if it's the Kuva or not. And L'gabe Shabbos, it doesn't matter whether it's the Kuva or not. Either way, it will be mutter. And L'gabe Tumah, it doesn't make a difference. So tomorrow, Tigma Abaya, Liba de Rava, Abaya wanted to for Rava that really you could bring a raya from Tumah to Shabbos. But this brisa here that makes a distinction is begulma yaskina. We're not talking about a needle that broke, a needle that was once a needle and it broke. There, avada, you could bring a raya from Tumah to Shabbos. But this brisa is speaking where you're originally in the manufacturing process of the needle. So how do you make a needle? First, they create the stick of steel, and then they make a point at one end, and they make a hole on the other end. So you have these needles that are in the middle of production. You have the metal stick, but you didn't yet make the hole in it. And zimnin de mimlech alayu umash fulamana. And therefore, a person could decide that, you know what, I'm not going to finish the production. I'm going to pull this needle out of production, and I'm going to use it to take out my splinter. Therefore, in Shabbos doesn't make a difference. But in Tumah, it won't get its Shem Keli until you finish its production. But if it already was a full Keli and then it broke, that everybody agrees Adam Zerkel of Engrutois. So where Rava says that you could compare Tumah to Shabbos is like a broken needle. A broken needle, everybody's going to throw out. Since everybody's going to throw it out, then it wouldn't have a status of a keli for Shabbos either. Now we have a new shaila, asuva yanuka. And Rashi says that means when a baby is born, sometimes its joints are out of place, it's not straight. So the question is, lahachlich seder evarv, are you allowed to straighten out the baby's evarv? Kishonoel evarv misparkin. So this isn't medicinal, it's just to make it look good, to make it in order. Would that be mutter dot? Rab Nachman Osir, he holds it's Osir, the domi lemasakin. It's like you're fixing a keli, which is a stick like makav patish. Rab Sheshes, sorry, and Rab Sheshes holds it would be mutter. So where would this be nagei alocha lemaisa? The poskim discussed this lagabi. Are you allowed to put a retainer on your teeth on Shabbos? Because maybe that's called misakin, just like straightening out the limbs of a baby. So Rabbi Elvin brought down from one of the poskim, I don't remember who it was too fast, I didn't have a chance to mark it down, that the condition of a baby when it's born is sort of broken up, it's not proper. So therefore, straightening out a sevorim, that's a much more serious type of situation. But a retainer, crooked teeth are not considered broken. So therefore, you for sure would be able to put a retainer on Shabbos, and for sure that wouldn't be considered a second mana. So Amar Nachman, how do I know that this would be usher? Now we learned, ein oisin apiktoisin the Shabbos. You can't do apiktoisin. What is apiktoisin? Apiktoisin is the very famous story where Ayid ate so much for the kiddush, he was so full he couldn't eat anymore. So someone told him, if you can't eat anymore, you don't have the room. gib a Stippe rup, es ist alles ausbrechen, es hob a Sache mehr Platz. So the Yid says, Mishige, wenn ich a Zat for a finger, like ich heran a pickle. So apictoisin was a certain mashke that they would drink that would help them purge everything to make more room. So the halach is, the Bride says you're not allowed to do that. And that's not refuah. That's also similar to tikkun. And since the Bride says you're not allowed to do it, Rab Nachman held, similarly, you're not allowed to straighten out the limbs of a baby. Rab Shesha says it's not a raya. Hosam lav urche. It's not normal to do something like that. And therefore, it would be usher. But hacha urche, this is the normal thing you do with babies. You straighten them out. And Rashi says, therefore, vareyu kamisha machilo yumashkeyu. It's no different than feeding a baby. It's part of the normal process. Here it would be mutter. Mina minalon. How do I know? So now Reb Sheshes is going on the attack. How do I know that this is mutter? That none we learned. Machat shel yad, a machat shel yad, a hand needle. It's mutter to use on Shabbos, little basa koitz, to take out a splinter. So you see, there's no problem with fixing things. So you're allowed to fix. So by the same token, if you can take a splinter out, you can fix the Ivarim. Rab Nachman said, no, house on pocket. By the splinter, that's an external thing. So you're not really fixing the goof. You're just taking something external out. But hakalei pocket, by the baby, it's not an external thing. It's a problem with the form of the baby itself, and that would be usher to fix on Shabbos. Does Rab
Nachman really think that a person is a keli?
He said a person would have the status of a keli, and fixing up a person would have the issue of makkah b'patish.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, sometimes they say, "Oh, der junge Mann, azatam rum is a kaila." So they must hold like Rab Nachman. And some like I was going out of my kalim, right? So you see, there's such a zach. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Kana shel zeisim. If you have a reed that they would normally use, what they would do is, Rashi tells us, is they would take the zeisim after they harvested them, they would put them in a vat, and then they would let them soak there. I guess they weren't immediately ready for pressing. They had to soften up a little bit, and they would take a stick and they would poke around on the olives, and the guy poking around knew his stuff, and he knew when he poked that stuff when they were ready to be put at the press. So this stick, sometimes it was a hollow, it was like a hollow reed or a hollow bamboo, and sometimes they would plug the bottom of it or not the bottom of it, and sometimes they wouldn't. So im yesh kesher b'roshai, if there's a knot on it, then mekabel tuma, then it will be mekabel tuma. V'im lav, if it doesn't have a knot on it, ein mekabel tuma. It's not mekabel tuma. Benkach u benkach, but regardless, nitel b'Shabbos, it could be carried on Shabbos. So right off the bat, before we even start anything, we have a problem. Because a moment ago, Rava told us that you could bring a raya from Tumah to Shabbos, yet our Mishnah right here says that you cannot compare Tumah to Shabbos, because here it says the kesher will make it Tamei, but even if it doesn't have a kesher, it's nitel b'Shabbos. So there are some that answered that there's a difference between if you're talking at the original construction of the keli, which is what our Bryce is talking about, or if you're talking about a needle that broke, which is similar to what the Gemara said on Amar Aleph. When the Gemara made a chiluk between a new needle being made versus an existing needle that broke. Okay, Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. Amai, why is it that it would become Tomei? Why does the Mishnah say that this reed becomes Tomei? Should the Klietzu. It doesn't have a Mokum Kibble. There's no place where this stick can hold liquid. It's hollow. It should the Klietzu, and the Makabel Tuma. So how can the Mishnah say it's Makabel Tuma? So Gemara, my time, why is it that you have to have a clay kibble in order to be Makabel Tuma? Because when the Torah talks about Caleb that become Tomei, the Torah compares them to a sack, and a sack can be carried. It could be carried moli v'reikon, but it could be carried moli. It has to have a clay kibble. So from there we learn that wood will not be Makabel Tuma unless it has a clay kibble. This doesn't. That little knot creates some miniature receptacle. So when I'm moving the olives around with the stick, some oil gets captured in that little cavity there that's made because of the knot. And it's that klei kibul that gives this a status of tumah. You're actually allowed to move all kalim around. So we're talking about all kalim shaysham malachim leheter, shaysham malachim leisser. You're allowed to carry around. This big saw that you would find in a sawmill, or the actual metal blade of the plow, those are two items that you're for sure not allowed to move around, even though they're klisha malach leser. Amar Nachman, hi uchlu de katri. Uchlu de katri, Rashi tells us is it's a copper keli that's made like a strainer, and they used it in the laundering of begodim. Either they would pour water on it and it would create like a showerhead stream to go on the begodim, or they would put the begodim on top of it and it would act as a grill, and then they would have besamim underneath it, and it would act as the fabric softener. So this copper keli is kiyeset shel mechresha dami. We treat it like a yeset mechresha, meaning it's also going to be usher to use on Shabbos. And the reason for these are all because it's a muchzu machas b'sar and kiss. These are all things that you want to protect from getting damaged. Omar Abaye, Chorva de Ushkafi, which Rashi teaches as the knife that's used by people who make ritzuas, who make leather to trim the leather. Visakina de Ashkafta, and Rashi teaches that as the knives that butchers use, butcher knives. And V'chatzina de Nagri, which Rashi teaches as the lura, which I think is called an ADZE or something. I have a picture of it. It looks a stickle like an axe, but it's not an axe. It's used to trim wood, I believe, or metal. An ADZE. It's called an ADZE. So this is what it looks like. There's different pictures of it, but this is one of the pictures that has some type of axe. So all of these things, Zok to Gemara, are considered items that you're makbid on, and therefore that'll be usher. So and those would be muksa. You cannot use because people are more careful with those that they shouldn't get damaged. Originally, when they made the Gzer of Muksa, they said Shlosh Kalim Nitlin b'Shabbos. There was only three. All kalim are usher to move on Shabbos. Whether they're malachim laheter, whether they're malachim liser, is extremely severe, except for three kalim. Miktsoi shel devela, which was the knife that you would cut apart a fig cake with, v'zuama listeron shel kedera, and a special type of ladle that they would skim off the zuama of a pot, v'saked ketana shel gavi shulchan, and a knife that you would use on the table, a table knife. Only those are mutter. Everything else is usher. Very, very severe. And the Gemara is going to tell us why they made such a severe gzeira. And then hitiru v'chazru v'hitiru v'chazru v'hitiru. They kept on relaxing the gzeira until it reached the opposite extreme. Atramu kala kelim nitlim b'Shabbos, till they say that all kelim you'd be allowed to carry on Shabbos, like our Mishnah says, chutz min meser agadol v'yeset shel mechresha. So we need to get down to the bottom of this, why this happened. My hitiru v'chazru v'hitiru. What is this all about? V'chazru v'hitiru again. Amar Abaye, this is what happened. Hitiru davar shemalach leheter l'tzorech gufay. At first they were mater a davar shemalach leheter l'tzorech gufay. 1 second, I think I'm losing my battery power, so I got to plug in. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to run around to plug in. Okay, back in. So what does it say over here? At first, they were only matter a davar shemalachta laheter letzorich gufay to use for itself for its use. The chazru v'yatiru, and then they added to the list of things that they were matter is davar shemalachta laheter letzorich mekaymai. If they were just in the way, even though you weren't using them, you're allowed to move them away. The chazru v'yatiru, then they expanded the heter to davar shemalachta leiser letzorich gufay. Then they allowed even the davar shemalachta leiser letzorich gufay in letzorich mekaymai loy. And they never allowed a davar shemalachta leiser letzorich mekaymai. But v'adayin b'yodei achas in b'shtei yodav loy. The only type of kalim they allowed you to move are smaller kalim that you can handle with one hand. But bigger kalim that takes a lot more effort, that you need two hands to handle, that they would never matter. Ad she'amru, till finally they said that kol ha'kalim nitlu b'Shabbos v'afilu b'shtei yadayim. Then they finally allowed everything. And Rashi tells us what happened is Chazal saw that Klal Yisrael was extremely lax in Chil Shabbos, and the Gemara is going to outline that later and bring psukim to illustrate that. So because of that, they clamped down very tight. And as the Yidden started being more makbid on Shabbos, Chazal relaxed the restrictions. But anyway, what we just learned here was the way Abaya learned is even at the end of the day, a kalisha malachte le'isser, you cannot move l'tzorich mekaymai. Rava didn't like that. Amalei Rava Michti, hitiru katani. It says hitiru. It doesn't say a partial letter. It said a full letter. Mali l'tzorich gufay, mali l'tzorich mekaymai. Once Chazal was mattered, they were mattered both l'tzorich gufay and l'tzorich mekaymai, so you can't split them up. So I'm going to tell you a different story as to how this unfolding of the Gzeira occurred. The hitiru, the chosru v'hitiru, the chosru v'hitiru. Along with this is what happened. First, hitiru davar shemalachta laheter, bein l'tzorich gufay, bein l'tzorich mekaymai. They weren't matter this in stages. When they were matter a kli shemalachta laheter, they were matter it across the board. Then they expanded their heter further. The chosru v'hitiru mechama l'tzeil. Then they said, even if you have a keli, that you don't need to move it, l'tzorich gufay, and you don't need to move it l'tzorich mekaymai, but it itself is getting damaged and you want to protect it itself because it's sitting in the sun, they said you're allowed to move it just for the purposes of protecting it. And then then they allowed, which is how we pascha nowadays, a kli shemalach le'isser, you're allowed to move both l'tzorich gufay and l'tzorich mekaymai in, but mechama l'tzeil loy. But you're not allowed to move a kli shemalach le'isser mechama l'tzeil. But there's still one thing missing. You still could only move something that one person alone could carry. But if it takes two people to carry, you would not be able to carry that on Shabbos. Even heavy things you're allowed to move on Shabbos. Meducha, a crusher. If it has garlic inside it, metaltal noisa, you're allowed to carry it. So this is clearly a kli shemalachta le'isser, and you're not allowed to carry it. There, the shaila was mechama l'tzeil, where even Rava agrees it would be also to move. Eisvei, v'shavin, both Bishama and Basil both agree. Shem katzav alav boser she'asul l'taltalai. So again, that was that Eli that both Bishama and Basil moide that you're not allowed to move it on Yom Tov because it's a kli shemalach le'isser. So Rava will learn that that's speaking where you were moving it mechal l'tzeil, and that's not mutter by kli shemalach le'isser. Amar Pchanina said this was a story as to why the Gzeros were very severe and then they were relaxed. In the days of the Navi, Nechemia ben Chakalya, this Mishnah was stated, or the halacha of this Mishnah was relevant. It says in the pasuk, I saw in Yehuda dorchim gatois b'Shabbos. They would press wine on Shabbos. And this was their Raisa. Mavin harimos, and they would gather tfu on Shabbos. So because of that, they had to ask her. Amr Belazar. I guess we should stop here. So I just want to fear us with very interesting halachas about kli shemalachta le'isser and kli shemalachta leheter. So first of all, we know Kli Shemalach L'Isser, you're allowed to move L'Tzorech Gufay or Mekoymai. But the Mishnah Berurah says something that's a very big chomer that needs explanation. So it says over here in the Mechaber, in Shin Ches, Sif Kimmel, Kli Shemalach L'Isser Mut L'Tatloi, in the Shtamas Tisha Ben Shoshka, okay, Bein L'Tzorech Gufay, Kagan Kornish Ozavim or Nefachim L'Tzorech V'Egoizim, or Bein L'Tzorech Mekoymai. So the Mishnah Berurah says on the Tzorech Gufay, Bein L'Tzorech Gufay, Umayri she'ein loy kli heter latash mizeh. You could only use a hammer to break open nuts if you don't have an option. So that's a massive chumrah that you're not allowed to use a kli shemalach l'isser l'tzorech gufay unless you don't have any other option. So Reb Moshe says, don't take the Mishnah Berurah to the extreme. For instance, let's say you don't have a nutcracker in your house, but your neighbor does. You're not mechuyev to knock on his door to borrow his nutcracker. You're allowed to use a hammer. So the Mishnah Berurah only means if you have one handy, don't just godafka use a hammer if you could use something that's going to be mutter. Now then there's a big shaila on cutlery, which is very important. If you have cutlery on your table, are you allowed to play around with the cutlery? There's actually a machlokes of poskim if you're allowed to move cutlery around. So the Shulta Gebarim says that they never made a gzera of muksa on cutlery. That doesn't even fall into Kli Shemalach L'Heter. There's no gzera of muksa on it at all. It's like food. And therefore, you're allowed to play and move around your cutlery uninhibited.
Is that regardless if it's on the table or not?
Correct.
Because
They weren't geyser on it. The problem is the Mishnah Berurah holds that they were geyser on the Kli Shemalach L'Heter. So let's see where it says it over here. The Mishnah Berurah says they were geyser. Kol Kli Shemalach L'Heter Mut L'Taltloi Afilu Eini Elu L'Tzorech HaKli Shem Yishaber Yigonov Al Shaloi L'Tzorech Klal also L'Taltla, which means you're not just allowed to play around with cutlery. Al Shaloi L'Tzorech Klal Hanum Kol Yoyim Lo Yitzrechenu Klal Avol Mitzorech Avol Mitzorech Loi Boisa Yoyim Bu Matatla Kadei Shei Muchen, then it's mutter. But Tammuz you're not allowed to touch it. So Klal. So it says, within koisos ukairis utzluchios v'saken shal gabi ashulchan the tedirim b'stashmish lechola alayu toris muksa klal ukaoichlin ukakidikois also the mutter ganzen valkein mutarin letaltlon shaloi afil shaloi tzarech klal. That's the first sheet of the Shulta Giborim. But then the Mishnah Berurah says v'yesh machmirin afilu b'kelim elu. There are those who are machmir, even silver on your table, just to play with it nonchalantly, which everyone does, plays with the silver. You're not allowed to do that according to the sheet of the Mishnah Berurah. But the Shalos L'Tshuvas Oz L'Dabru says, why do people play with cutlery at the table? Because they're nervous, they're fidgeting. Fidgeting is also a tzarech. Therefore, Oz L'Dabru, that's not called for no reason. Fidgeting with your cutlery would be allowed, even in the sheet of the Mishnah Berurah, the Yesh L'Hachmer, it doesn't apply to fidgeting. Fidgeting is avada mutter. So that's very, very important because that's something that we play with. So a fidget spinner is for sure not muksa on Shabbos. Okay, we should probably stop here because it's already a new sugya and it's already getting late. What time is it? It's almost 7:30. So I guess we'll stop here. Shkoich Rabbeisai. I guess, should I stop the recording? We'll stop the recording.